Hi folks, I'm Rod Genders from Genders and Partners Solicitors, the oldest law firm in South Australia, established in 1848. And we help people protect themselves, their families and their assets through modern integrated estate planning. Now you would have heard a lot in recent years about the increase in pressure on first home buyers, and that has led to an increase in young adults approaching their parents and their grandparents for assistance to getting into the real estate market for the first time. And this is known as the Bank of Mum and Dad, or BOMAD. And if your family is in this position, you need to be very careful, because there are many traps for young players and their parents and grandparents if you are thinking about providing some money to assist your kids or grandkids in this area. So I'd like to invite your attention to a new book that we've created. It's free and it contains a lot of really useful information to help you help your child buy their first home. Now, it is absolutely essential that you get advice before you help your child buy their home. And you can decide how you'll help your child. There are lots of different ways of doing so. One of the most common is a gift of money to your child to help them buy a home. But there are potential tax and Centrelink implications when you gift money to anybody. And those complications can apply to you and your partner, and also to your child and their partner. And if you give a gift to your child, are there any ways that you can protect that gift in case bad things subsequently happen? And in this free book, I'll talk about a number of things that can go wrong, and sadly they do go wrong with quite a degree of regularity. This book talks about the pros and cons of BOMAD gifts. Now, an alternative to gifting money to your child would be to lend money to them. And we explore how that can work and how it can be set up in this book. And there are also other alternatives to a gift or a loan. But you need to be aware that there are significant risks in all of these transactions, and you need to carefully research them and take professional advice before you embark upon these transactions. You're going to need to start a conversation with your kids about this. They might be pressing you, they might be starry-eyed and desperate to move out, and they need your help. And as a loving parent or grandparent, you're predisposed to helping them, of course. But you won't do them or yourselves or the rest of your family any favours if you rush in and don't consider the potential consequences. So first, decide whether it's going to be a gift or a loan or some other sort of strategy. Secondly, you need to decide what you're going to do about your other kids, because very typically the oldest child will ask for some funds to get onto the property market, and then you've got to consider the possibility that a younger child later on will also need some assistance. So the question that you've got to ask is, where do you start? And reading this book is definitely a good start. You should consider your own goals, and that includes your own financial situation, both you and your partner. And you should also explore if there are other ways to help your child that don't involve actual gifting or loaning of money. And indeed, there are a number of ways that you can help. Should you document the transaction? That's a no-brainer. You absolutely must document it, and very carefully. Don't try to do it yourself. Don't do it on the scrap of a back of an envelope. It's got to be a carefully created professional legal document if it's going to have any effect at protecting you and yours. If you do it as a loan, then you do need to set up a repayment schedule, and that also needs to be documented. And even if you don't want interest to be repaid, that still needs to be documented, because otherwise people can misinterpret your intentions and you can create all sorts of problems for yourself and your family if something happens to you and then after you're gone there is some sort of dispute as to what was intended. It can break families apart. You absolutely need to seek professional advice before you begin this process, and the book talks about the sorts of advice and the sorts of documents that you're going to need to look at. Yes, you should draw up a contract with your child and their partner. This is a really big concern for a lot of parents or grandparents. If they gift or loan money to their child and the child is buying a property with their partner, what happens to your gift or loan when the ex-partner of your child goes south with the proceeds or part of it? That can be guarded against if the right advice and documentation is put in place before you enter the transaction. What happens if there are multiple parties to the transaction? For example, you're going to lend some money to your child and the parents of your child's partner also wants to get in on the act. What then happens if somebody wants their money back? That all has to be thought through. We've talked about if your child's relationship breaks down, but what if your relationship breaks down? Suddenly you've got to pay out a divorce settlement and you mightn't have the money that you think you have for your retirement. You might need it back from your child. And of course, if the child's relationship breaks down, you don't want their ex-partner to rush off with your gift or loan. We've touched on this already. How do you treat all your kids fairly? This is covered in the book. And structuring the loan and repayments definitely needs to be done carefully. You can, of course, act as a guarantor or co-borrower to support your child's mortgage, but there are massive risks in doing this. You can take out a joint mortgage with your child, even if you're not going to live in the property with your child. But there are ongoing consequences for that. For example, land tax, because now you'd have two properties and that means that you'll get charged land tax, and that will be an annual fee that you'll have to pay forevermore. And of course, there are a multitude of legal and financial considerations, many of which we cover in this book. So I encourage you to download this book. It's prepared by me, Rod Genders, from Genders and Partners, the oldest law firm in South Australia, established in 1848. So we have been assisting multiple generations of great Australian families, just like yours, for over 170 years. We specialise only in trusts, wills and estates, and we're very good at what we do. There's our web address and our contact phone number. We look forward to helping you and your family